Hello. So I'm on the wine again, and I'm here to talk about something related to the video yesterday, which is Himbo Man and the Bible, Adam and Eve specifically. So, yesterday I talked about female nature being distilled narcissism, and now I'm going to show you how in the Bible it proves my point. So, the story of creation, loosely remembered and tied in with the theory of women of mine, goes like this. So you have, the creation, then he makes Adam, puts him in the Garden of Eden, then he makes animals. But before that he tells them, don't eat from the tree of life or the tree of good and evil. No problem. He's bored with the animals, sympathetic gods, like, I need to try something else. But what God doesn't know, when he's thinking, that's when the devil comes in. He sort of sneaks in while God's thoughts are preoccupied. And God doesn't know that the devil's manipulated a few things with Adam. So God comes back after some sympathetic problem solving and decides to trick Adam in his sleep. And he takes out a rib. Not the top rib, or second, or third, but he takes out the fifth rib. Right? But what God doesn't know is that the devil has tampered with Adam's fifth rib. The devil's a tricky character, and God knows this, but he was caught off guard. So God chooses Adam's manipulated rib, unbeknownst to himself. And voila, you get a woman, and she's told blah blah blah, same story as everybody else. But, excuse me, God, the snake appears and tells, the story, Eve. It appeals to her inner narcissism, grandiose, to eat from the tree of good and evil because she wants a turn of power. So that's grandiosity, or what religious people say, pride. And she does. Okay, so now that she's been given the power of narcissism known to herself, solipsism known to herself, as I said yesterday, her love is now HIV. So the HIV virus needs to find a victim. So off she goes to find her victim. And there he is, Himbo Man. Adam is actually Himbo Man. She knows good and evil, she knows narcissism, so she wants to turn Adam into herself so that she can spiritually masturbate, as I said. But where does this urge come from? Well, the devil manipulated the fifth rib and tainted it with narcissism. So when God was making Eve, he didn't know that what the substance of the rib was what the devil had turned it into. It was a transubstantiation of bone to narcissism. So Adam had narcissism in his ribs. It was taken out. And narcissism was turned into Eve. This is how the snake could appeal to Eve, because if it hadn't been that rib, the snake wouldn't have been able to appeal to Eve. So the narcissistic rib was turned into Eve, and then she went looking for a himbo man, like a intellectually submissive, average IQ person, and sunk her fructose teeth into him. And then, you know, the story after that, God punishes them. And the snake. And what's the solution? Well, the solution is men toil, blood, sweat, toil and tears for the rest of their life. Death and stuff like that. And women to be subjugated to man in the natural hierarchy of things. And the eschatology of the man with his intellect is to hone his intellectual abilities to destroy the narcissism inside the female. So there is conflict between men and women. And when women go for the himbo man, they're recirculating, reliving the Garden of Eve story. They're going for the apple. They're listening to the devil. And they're creating chaos. So, in a modern version, you could see that the feminists and the bankers and the international finance capital, if you believe the stories, have coalesced into the snake and approached Eve with her inner fifth rib, her inner narcissism, and said, you can have power. You can soothe, assuage your grandiosity by being feminist. But so you can have the power of good and evil by, you know, feminism. And this feminism has now culminated in another decay where God must come back and punish the world. And you can see that happening as the world's playing out. What's happening in Western culture is the instantiation of female narcissism through feminism, where feminism is the new apple. And the himbo man is, again, a victim. So the himbo man is the unintellectual man, lacking individuation, lacking telos, eschatology, lacking purpose. The person who doesn't think, just nah. And he is the man who is accepting the apple again. And it's the interplay between the fifth-ribbed, influenced, devil-influenced female growing like a fungus and injecting her HIV into himbo men, or what Nietzsche would call the last men, isn't it? And allowing the fungus to grow like a damp mold or whatever and destroy the civilization. And that's, in biblical terms, God's punishment for the reincarnation or the reliving of creation, Adam and Eve in the garden. That's what that is. So female nature as narcissism and female love as HIV replicating itself is proven in the Bible, and we live it today metaphorically. And the Achilles heel for narcissism is male intellect. But men don't pursue that. Men pursue like football, you know, going to the pub, getting drunk, taking drugs. And this is the equivalent of them submitting their brains to the apple, which women have taken from the feminist elite bankers and stuff like that, who want to sow chaos into Western culture.